The Lost Tribes from Outer Space by Mark Dem, Part 10, Chapter 25, The Silence of John 23, page 199. Behind the white walls of the Carmelite convent at Coimbra, Portugal, may be hidden one of the few people to whom the near future of the planet Earth is known. Sister Lucia, a small 67-year-old nun, is the only survivor of the three young shepherds to whom the angel of Yahweh appeared one day in 1917. He was resplendent with light, like Elijah and Moses when they conversed with Yahweh on the mountain. The children realized he was an angel, even though he had no wings. Lucia, the oldest, who was 10 at the time, later wrote, "The presence of God was felt so intensely and intimately that we dared not speak, even among ourselves. The next day, we still felt our minds enveloped in that atmosphere. It disappeared very slowly." Jacob had said, "How fearsome is this place! This is no other than the house of God." Genesis 28:17. The angel came twice again. He declared that he was the guardian angel of Portugal. Everything else, except for the solar miracle that closed the series of supernatural manifestations and was witnessed by a vast crowd, took place within the souls of the three children. I will formulate no hypotheses about the lady who came after the angel and whom they naturally saw as the Virgin Mary, after wondering if they could consider her a lady despite her extreme youth. I will not try to reconstruct the process by which familiar images submerged the unfamiliar reality that appeared under the holm oak at Cova de Iria, as it had appeared to Moses in the burning bush. I will say only that I do not think it can be seriously maintained that the celestial powers gave their stamp of approval to the aesthetics of Saint Sulpice by adopting the images of the heart of Mary, surrounded by a crown of thorns, and the gilded chalice with Eucharistic host hovering above it. Nor did they come in great pomp to improve upon the frightful poverty of the prayers of the time, and incite the children to suffer to make amends for blasphemies and all offenses against the Immaculate Heart of Mary. If the events of Fatima could be reduced to those unverifiable expressions of commonplace mysticism, I would never have thought of taking an interest in them within the framework of this book. But a few words that give food for thought can be discerned beneath the conventional interpretation of the visions perceived and the messages heard. Certain forms adopted by the mysterious speakers remind me so strongly of divine interventions in the past that I cannot ignore them. "Fatima," said Claudel, "is a violent, I nearly said scandalous, incursion of the other world into the frontiers of this agitated world." Lucia asked the lady, "Where are you from?" And she replied, "I am from heaven." And here is a known theme, the constant refrain of the biblical prophets that appeared in the Virgin's discourse during the third apparition. "When you see a night illuminated by a great unknown light, you will know it is a sign given to you by God that the punishment of the world is near." Religious commentators see that sign as the aurora borealis of January 1938, which is one interpretation, but there is another. Although the aurora borealis is seldom seen in southern Europe, it cannot really be called an unknown phenomenon, and that sentence came immediately after the Dantean vision inflicted on the little shepherds, the vision of a sea of fire in which were plunged souls of human form that were raised by flames and fell back in all directions like sparks in a great fire, without weight or balance, amid loud cries and moans of pain and despair that made us shudder and tremble with terror. Sister Lucia, was it a vision of hell, as the lady said, or an evocation of Operation Dead Planet? Sir Belod Salignac, who closely studied the Fatima apparitions, notes that several points remained incomprehensible to the little shepherds. When the strange visitors came to earth in a globe of fire, whom did they intend to address through those children? Several clues seem to indicate that Lucia and her two companions were only intermediaries. After the dissolution of their order by Philip the Fair, a considerable number of Templars went to Portugal and entered the military order of the Militia of Christ. This may not be without significance. What was the specific role of the angel assigned to guard Portugal? Had the visitors from space discovered above that country a new corridor that favored the approach of their cosmic vessels? In the course of the sixth apparition, Lucia had the impression that the lady was the Virgin of Mount Carmel, and she chose to spend the rest of her life in a convent consecrated to that Virgin. Yes, the appearance of the satellite in the sky over Fatima on October 13th, 1917, irresistibly suggests that Yahweh, if it was really he, has certain designs on the region of Coimbra, Portugal. And here is another clue. I will give it only for whatever it may be worth, but it leaves me thoughtful. It was on another October 13th, 1307, that Philip the Fair made the arrests all over France that abruptly ended the rise of the worshippers of the Baphomet, and the Council of Vienna, which led to the bull Vox Clementis and the dissolution of the order, began on still another October 13th, 1311. No, I cannot believe that the son of Joshua appeared in all its glory to urge three little shepherds to be sure to say their rosaries. Beneath the words that were transmitted, the real recipients of the message had to recognize its meaning. And then there were the words that were not transmitted. Our Lady said something else, which was not to be revealed. The curious destiny of the Fatima secret is well known. Sister Lucia refused to repeat it to anyone. One day she wrote it down and sent it in a sealed envelope to the bishop of her diocese with instructions not to open it till 1960, in accordance with the order of the lady herself. When the time came, the bishop sent the envelope to the Pope reigning at the time, John the 23rd. But after reading what it contained, the Pope decided not to divulge it. Is that secret so frightful that human ears cannot hear it? Serbalod Salignac, a Catholic author, has written, "It was thought that the secret might trouble souls and that, in its prudence, the Church did not want a great fear to arise, as in the year 1000. What were people afraid of in the year 1000? The end of the world. The popes, as I have said, must have known. Benedict XV, who was reigning in 1917, showed his approval of the cult of Our Lady of Fatima from the start. As for Pius XII, it cannot be thought that he did not know the secret hidden in Sister Lucia's envelope, since the same celestial agent reconstituted the solar miracle of October 13th for him in the gardens of the Vatican, probably in the form of extrasensory visions. And finally, Paul VI, who went to Fatima in 1967, is thought to have transmitted the secret to the governments of London, Washington, and Moscow to make them aware of the steep slope down which the world was moving as the result of nuclear interventions. José Charpentier. But which steep slope was involved? The one that may lead mankind to self-destruction, or the one that will provoke a finishing touch given by an extraterrestrial jealous of his prerogatives? Chapter 26. Negotiating with Yahweh. In the Paris newspaper L'Express of December 24th, 1973, a Christmas issue saddened by the attack at the Rome airport, Emmanuel Burrell recapitulated, as I did at the beginning of this book, and as so many others had done before, the outrages inflicted on his coreligionists through the centuries. He concluded, for each persecution, historical analysis can find intelligible, if not legitimate causes. But those causes vary, and persecution endures. Is there a mystery of Israel, and can one think so without shuddering? I believe that mystery exists, but it is a mystery only because till now, it seems, no one has tried to penetrate it by reading the Bible. Submerged in the subconscious mind of mankind, it periodically surfaces, not in the form of a clear thought, but as a flashing vision that is too brief to be analyzed. This gives rise not to a lucid examination of the question, but to animal defensive reactions. Hitler's insane determination to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth was one of those primitive reactions. The complicity that surrounded his efforts was related to the same phenomenon. At the origin of massacres and the various forms of oppression, there is no doubt the same underground, unchecked cause, a fleeting intuition that leaves the feeling of a danger whose existence is linked to the presence of Jews in the world. It is a vast, unprecedented danger that sets off visceral panic and an aggressiveness directed against those who are thought to be responsible for the threat. In this book, I have tried to bring to light the deepest root of anti-Semitic reactions of intolerance. I believe I have shown that they are not only unjust, but stupid. Unjust because the community involved, despite the circumstances of its implantation on Earth, is an integral part of the human family. This obvious truth is not placed in doubt by pointing out the extraterrestrial origin of the Jews. Yahweh, that is, the faraway people hidden behind that name, is himself the product of a natural evolution whose only real singularity comes from the fact that it took place several million years earlier. The extraterrestrials who brought the Jews are human beings, similar to us, who came from another region of the cosmos. Unjust also because, as we have seen, the Jews did not choose to be Jews. They were quick to adopt the gods of other peoples and escape the burdensome distinction with which they had been honored. They were constantly being taken in hand by their celestial protector, but they rebelled beneath his yoke. They were authoritatively set apart as soon as they appeared on the planet. They learned the secrets of the extraterrestrials' tree of knowledge, but they were overwhelmed by that discovery. It was Yahweh who committed original sin. Judaism, said the Jewish writer Heinrich Heine, is not a religion, but a misfortune. I added that anti-Semitic reactions are stupid. If they are really set off by awareness of a danger, one should lucidly and intelligently examine the means of warding off that danger. The behavior of Hitler and his ilk is that of a fox that has been caught in barbed wire and only entangles itself more firmly by its convulsive struggles. If there is a danger, not from the Jews, but from the intentions of the extraterrestrial who put them on earth, a remedy must be sought in history and the Bible. It is possible to thwart Yahweh's plan. That is what the builders of the Tower of Babel unconsciously tried to do, and it was consciously attempted by Yahushua of Nazareth. The tactic comes down to one vast operation, achieving the great unity in which there will be no more Jews or Gentiles, but only children of the same Father. This Father is the Almighty, the God of the first creation, the guiding pattern of the universe, whose thought includes, in a single concept, the luminous galaxies and the thinking beings who inhabit planets. To put the matter in pragmatic terms, on the assumption that it would be too hazardous to count entirely on feelings of human solidarity, anti-Semitism seems the surest way to bring on catastrophe. The opposite attitude seems the best way to avoid it, by shuffling Yahweh's cards. There is still the prohibition against images. The visitor from space cannot accept any further development of our space program. Our efforts to increase the range of our rockets, efforts in which many Jewish scientists participate, it must be added, are enough in themselves to make him inclined to destroy our planet. In a situation in which one faces an adversary with superior power, the solution has always been to negotiate. Will we soon have to negotiate this matter with Yahweh? The past shows that his mind is not closed to that possibility. We see examples in his agreement with Cyrus, his pact with the Templars, and his endeavors to communicate with the popes and perhaps also with certain contemporary heads of state. But on what basis can we negotiate? I do not claim to have enough knowledge of the facts to indicate a valid basis with certainty. I will say only that mankind is now open to the idea of a new God, the one that religions offer to the worship of the world's peoples, in one form or another, has left an empty place in their hearts, like a beautiful dream that one can no longer believe in. God does not exist, but we miss him greatly. He did not survive the development of science, and in a strange way, those who have most rigorously condemned him in their minds are those who fall back on even more dubious beliefs, such as astrology and voodoo. Could the vacant place not be filled by an intermediate God compatible with technology, one who would assume the functions of a providence? In other words, could it not be filled by Yahweh, whom we have seen to be perfectly capable of becoming a God for engineers? The missionary from space would thus have achieved his goal on Earth, conquering the cosmos and being recognized by the planets on which his spaceship lands. And man would also have achieved his goal, for do the intelligence and technology that he uses in his efforts to travel into outer space have any other purpose, ultimately, than to establish relations with other conscious beings living in other worlds? The astounding truth of the universe has only one source: Yahweh. Yahweh, God of Genesis, an extraterrestrial being. Yahweh, who created man to colonize the planet. Yahweh, who chose inspectors for a continuing surveillance of Earth. Yahweh, who gave Yahushai a surprising role in the cosmos. Yahweh, who set up God's plan, a fateful meeting in space destined since creation. The lost tribes from outer space. Lost, but how? At the whim and behest of Yahweh. Chosen, but how? Here, finally, is the true, astonishing interpretation of the Book of Books that successfully explains an exciting new reality, the real beginnings of life on planet Earth. The end. Thank you for listening. Peace, blessing, much love and enlightenment to you all. Paix, bénédiction, amour et illumination à vous tous. Shalom.